All right, good evening. Welcome to today's episode of Purple Politics. I'm going to be reacting to Donald Trump's 100 Days interview with Meet the Press. This is a centrist news channel. We like to commentate on, political commentary, pop culture. I feel like everything is politics, so everything is fair game to me. I'm going to see what I may agree with the interviewer, what I may agree with Trump, and see if I could find any examples of what I believe is the predominant issue, the main problem with political discourse in general, and that is bad faith conversations. We're going to see how they go back and forth, how intense the interview is, and how Donald Trump handles this interview. All right, so let's get started.
To Meet the Press.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here to mark your first 100 days in office. It has been an incredibly busy 100 days. You've signed more than 140 executive orders. You've been focused on the border, the economy, foreign policy. What is your biggest goal in the next 100 days?
Well, I think we're going to.
So out the gate, and I'll be quick. There's been uh, there's been a lot of conversation to frame Donald Trump's um, um, administration so far as like tyrannical, and so when she brings up the like executive orders, you might think that she might be painting it with like the brush of tyranny, but it you could have the plausible deniability to say that she's just saying that a lot has been going on, but I do believe that you can possibly interpret it as saying, well, you're doing a lot of quote unquote unconstitutional or not going through the usual channels of government to get things passed. All right.
See a lot of results. We've already seen them on the border. We have the best border in the history of our country. It was 99.999, and nobody ever thought that was possible. In fact, Biden, if you remember, said he has to get legislation. And I said, no, you just need a new president. And I guess I was right. We have the best border we've ever had. We're doing great on illegal immigration. We are being hit hard.
So what Donald Trump just made allusion to is the idea that we need more legislation passed to control illegal immigration. But many opponents of that idea feel like we just need to enforce the laws on hand, right?
By judges that I think they're trying to take away the power of the presidency. I was elected in a massive landslide in a big vote. We won the swing states. We won the popular vote. We won the district votes by tremendous numbers. We won everything. And one of the primary reasons I was elected was to get people out of our country that were allowed. We have prisoners, we have murderers, we have terrorists in our country, we have people from mental institutions that are seriously insane. They all came in through Biden's open border policy, and I was elected to get them out and to seal the border, but to get them out. And we'll have judges, they're activist judges, they're saying, well, you don't have the right to take out murderers and people that you don't even want to talk about. These are really some really bad criminal people, and they're here illegally. So, they talk about your next question will be due process, but they talk about due process, but do you get due process when you're here illegally?
We're going to talk about all of that. We are.
Now, you'll notice that Trump oftentimes rambles a little bit when asking questions. Now talk you can chalk that up to him being someone that is loquacious, or but some people might argue that there's such the point of interview is not to genuinely elicit answers from him. So he's just gonna take any time it is to like get his ideas across because he doesn't really think he's gonna get a fair shake at his ideas being expressed. So he might be rambling, or he might just be someone that's just like, well, I know you're gonna not take what I say seriously, or listen, engage with what I'm saying genuinely. So I'm just gonna take my time out to get my ideas out to the people, quote unquote.
Are going to talk about deportation, but I want to start on the economy, sir, which obviously the biggest issue for voters. We got new numbers today, better than expected job numbers.
Much better.
At the same time, the economy shrank in the first quarter. You've been arguing all week that this is President Biden's economy. Is this now your economy, sir?
Well, I think certain aspects of it are. Costs are. I was able to get down the costs, but even that, it takes a while to get them down, but we got them down good. We lost $5 to $6 billion a day with Biden. 5 to 6 billion. And I've got that down to a great number right now in a record time. We're talking about 100 days. But just think of what that is. $5 billion a day we're losing on trade. And we were very tough with China, as you know. We put 145% tariff on. Nobody's ever heard of such a thing. And we've essentially cut off trade relationships by putting that much of a tariff on. And that's okay. We've gone cold turkey. That means that we're not losing. We lost $1 trillion to China. $1 trillion. That means we're not losing $1 trillion when we go cold turkey.
Now, when now I've typically leaned left when I voted growing up, but I've in recent years become sort of um, disillusioned with the quote unquote left. Um, you know, whenever any issue is brought up politically, I like to. Whenever a claim is made, I like to look at the facts, if you will. And so, when when Trump first brought up the idea of these imbalanced tariffs between different countries and how they've allegedly been taking advantage of us, right? When it's presented in most news sources, it's mostly scoffed at. Almost as if he's like whining. But I'd like to look and see, well, is are these imbalanced tariffs true? Like, do these disproportionate taxes on goods exist between different countries? And I look it up, and objectively, yes, these unfair tariffs, inequities exist between different countries. Now, we can certainly have a conversation with what's the best way to 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 combat it, but to scoff it, to laugh it off as if these losses in trade, especially with like countries that we help to prop up, you know, um, extorting us. I think that it's a fair idea to bring up that you need to lower these tariffs, and if you're not willing to lower it on us, then we're going to match or give a punitive uh, tariff rate until you bring your tariff rate down, right? So it's when I bring up bad faith, we need to engage honestly with like conversations. If someone brings up an idea, you want to genuinely contend with it. So even if you believe that the idea is false, you need to honestly engage with the topic itself. Not resort to calling, ad hominem attacks, but genuinely address the issue at hand. And the issue at hand is tariffs. Are imbalanced tariffs, unfair tariffs against the United States issue? True or false? Right? Now, 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 maybe tariffs back uh, is not the whole answer. Maybe we need to talk about how we're going to bring back manufacturing industry to the United States first, right? Maybe it's not so simple, but the people in America are swaying uh, in the direction of Trump because at least some kind of solution is being offered, right? Instead of more of the same as what was told to us by the candidates on the left, right? Right. So let's continue watching the interview.
because we're not doing business with them right now. And they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal very badly. We'll see how that all turns out, but it's got to be a fair deal. But think of it, we're losing $1 trillion, and that was a big part of the $5 million a day.
And I want to talk about China, but just staying on this idea of the economy. On the eve of your inauguration, the stock market spiked. You called it the Trump effect. Are you?
It spiked because I was elected president.
Well,
It spiked because of anybody else. It spiked because they see what I'm going to do. They know what I'm going to do with the tariffs and everything else. And I think it's actually working out better than we anticipated. Did you see oil prices? Did you see gasoline is now below, in many cases, in many states, below $2 a gallon, 198, 199, 197?
Well, my question, sir, is when the stock market spiked, you said this is the Trump effect. When the numbers weren't so good earlier this week, you said it's the Biden effect. Are you only taking ownership of the good numbers and not the bad numbers?
I think he did a lot of very bad things, and despite some of the bad things, we're overcoming them. But he was bad on the border. He was bad on the economy. We had the worst inflation in the history of our country. Look, Biden gave us the worst inflation in the history of our country. People, it didn't matter what they made because they were losing their shirt because of costs. Now take a look at what happened. Oil is down, gasoline is down, groceries are down, eggs. You were the one that asked me. You asked me about eggs. It was the first week. I didn't even know anything about what were you talking about. Egg prices were so high you couldn't buy eggs. They didn't have any eggs. And they said Easter is going to be a disaster. Well, we had Easter at the White House, and we had thousands of eggs, and they were down 87%.
Yeah, a lot of that, of course, the spike was because of bird flu. But when does it become the Trump economy?
Why do you say that?
Well, tell me,
we had the same bird flu as he had.
When does
And this is my issue with these left-leaning interviewers, because here's my issues. There's so many things that you can generally criticize Donald Trump on, right? Right. But when your attacks and criticisms will have so much more impact on it if you can compliment where it's due. Because if you can compliment someone and give credit where it's due, when you criticize someone, people will know that it holds more weight, because you're not just saying everything that they do is terrible, right? But when he mentioned gas. Is that true? Are we going to engage with that idea? Is gas lower now? Did eggs drop at this point? Because I remember this interview. I remember when you first interviewed him, and is it fair to say that it's disingenuous to ask someone 1 week into their administration, why aren't the prices of eggs lower yet? It's like the person just got into office. And I was saying, Trump is bombastic. He is impulsive. There's so many things that you can generally criticize him about. And so to make things up and to split hairs to criticize him does the left such a disservice. Like eggs haven't dropped 1 week into your administration. What do you have to say about it? It's crazy. The man just barely got into office, and also, interviewers and journalists should be neutral, right? And so when you find that they give context to the opposition party, so when they say, well, the price of the price of eggs during the Biden administration was high because of bird flu, right? But you can't give Donald Trump the context of, well, the price of eggs is still high because we're only 1 week into the administration, and it's going to take a while for your policies to take effect, right? Right. So it's just this sense of like, I feel Donald Trump is tensed right now because he feels like this is like a gotcha interview. She's trying to butter him up before she rips the rug out from under him. And this interviewer is a tough cookie. I don't blame him for feeling that way if he does, you know.
When does it become the Trump economy?
It partially is right now, and I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy, and the bad parts are the Biden economy, because he's done a terrible job. He did a terrible job on everything, from his auto pen, which I'm sure he knew nothing about some of the things he was supposedly signing, to immigration. You look at what happened with immigration, how bad it was. Think of it. We have murderers. 11,888 murders, many of them murdered more than one person. Think of that. And they're in our country. Now, we've gotten a lot of them out, and we know who many of them are, and we're on the hunt. But why would anybody do that? Why would anybody, who could do such a thing, would it allow hundreds of thousands and even millions of people into our country who are criminals and murderers at the highest level? Who would do this?
But, sir, you acknowledge when you announced your tariffs, for example, the stock market dropped. It's been volatile. It has since gone up.
It is,
Do you
but now
take
it's going up.
responsibility
Look at
for that?
today.
Yeah. Do you take
Look,
responsibility when it drops?
Ultimately, I take responsibility for everything, but I've only just been here for a little more than 3 months. But the stock market, look at what's happened in the last short period of time. Didn't it have 9 or 10 days in a row, or 11 days where it's gone up? And the tariffs have just started kicking in, and we're doing really well psychologically. I mean, the fake news was giving me such press on the tariffs. The tariffs are going to make us rich. We're going to be a very rich country.
So let's talk about the tariffs. And I want to ask you about something you said this week. Got a lot of attention. You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
So on the issue of the volatility of the stock market, right? Like, one of the things that, like, one of my pet peeves when interviewers like ask questions is that when you bring up a topic that is, critical of the person being interviewed, and they offer a response or like a retort or explanation, and when they flounder a bit or they give like a poor answer, the interviewer will like attack them and like try to trip them up over the words. But when the interviewee gives like a satisfactory answer, they'll just move on to the next topic, as if they didn't ask the question, and to me that's a example of like bad faith, because to the untrained eye and ear, if they don't acknowledge whenever you made a good point, and they only like stick to when you flounder or make a bad point or have a bad showing, you'll walk away with you'll be have the impression that you did not do well in the interview, because we only lingered on the parts where you performed poorly, and we didn't say, well, you know what, that's a fair point. All right, I do understand that when you do impose a tariff, it's going to take a while for the markets to adjust. I do understand that it's not just the Biden or the Trump economy. It's a good point to say it's a mix of both, because of course you've only been here for 3 months. Of course, everything you have to combat 8 years of economic inertia, if you will. So it's a fair point to say it's a mix of both, right? I don't think you have to claim to be a Trump apologist to say that it's a fair to be mixed, to have a mix of both. Again, I find that with politics nowadays, people feel like if you are not totally polarized, like if you can find any common ground with like the other side, you're like you're like you're like Satan, like you're like the devil, right? Everything must be polarized. If I'm on the right, I must follow the all of the talking points of the right. If I'm on the left, I must follow all the talking points on the left. And it's such like a lazy, stupid way of thinking that to me it's just doesn't serve me anymore, and it doesn't serve us as a country, and it's making us stupid, and it makes us gullible to be tricked by emotionality and pomp and circumstance and symbolism and you know so I'm gonna cut the video off right here, but you could we'll probably review the next of it in a part two. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe below. Tell me what you feel about this video. This is my first video on this channel. Let me know what you want me to talk about, whether you're on the left or the right. Remember, do not be in your feelings, right? If you wanted me to comment on certain political topics, uh, pop culture topics, you let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, follow Purple Politics.